Welcome back. We're continuing our Earth Day celebration with one of the oldest and most vital food seasoning in the world. Where would our food be without salt? So here now from one of the most friendly salt makers on the market is Amy Veal, a salt maker with Saltverk. So I was just telling everybody in the studio how much I am obsessed with salt. I love salts. I love flavor salts. So tell us about Saltverk and what makes you guys different in the salt making market.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. And you and I are kindred souls. I too love salt. So same. So what sets Saltverk apart is that we make our sea salt sustainably. So in order to make sea salt, you have to evaporate about 90% of the fresh water in order for the salt crystals to form and then to sink to the bottom of a pan or whatever it is that you're distilling into. And so inherently, it's going to be a large consumer of energy. What makes ours different is we're actually using geothermal energy. So here in Iceland, geothermal energy is abundant. And what geothermal energy can mean is lots of different things. So a volcano erupting can be a form of geothermal energy. A geyser going off can be a form of geothermal energy. Or even the boiling mud pots in Yellowstone, that's a form of geothermal energy. But for us, what it means is it's near boiling water that's coming out of the ground right next to our production facility. We take that boiling water, we route it through a series of pipes that are in our salt brine tanks, and we use that to superheat that seawater and then evaporate off that fresh water. And what sets us apart then is that we have no emissions and there's no carbon footprint during our production process. So even though we're evaporating that 90%, we are not emitting the same as a different sea salt producer into the environment. I'd say the other thing that really sets us apart is the taste and flavor of our salt. So the way that wine has terroir and really taste of the place that it's from, we like to say that sea salt has merroir and taste of the sea or the ocean that you're pulling from. So our sea salt really tastes of the beautiful, pristine, clean Icelandic waters that we're pulling from. And then because we're pulling from Iceland and this incredibly remote place in Iceland, where I like to joke that there are more whales than there are people, means that the water is not contaminated. So it has none of the microplastics that you can find in other places in the world. And so that translates through into our salt as well. Incredibly pure and clean.
Yes, so people have talked about the taste. Gordon Ramsay has said that he loves salt from Saltverk. Yes. Okay, going back to how we harvest it. So in somebody else that is doing this differently, they would be heating the water they would be creating their own heat, correct? Whereas you are sort of harvesting energy from the earth.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so, I mean, there are sea salt producers, say in the south of France, that they're using the sun and the wind to evaporate. So obviously they too are sustainable because they have no carbon footprint. But that's why something like the fleur de sel is so expensive, is because they can only harvest it every now and again when the sun and the wind has evaporated enough. A different sea salt producer might be using natural gas to evaporate, and inherently that's going to produce a lot of emissions. And yes. So for us, yeah, you're exactly right. We're repurposing something that would otherwise go to waste, and so we have no emissions.
Such a great way to celebrate on this Earth Day, but I want to make sure we have time to get to the actual salts. So what salts do you have in front of you? What are the flavors there?
Yeah, so all of our flavors are connected to Icelandic culture, customs, or traditions. So just our plain flaky, obviously a celebration of the space and place. Lava salt, meant to evoke that craggy, rocky landscape that covers so much of Iceland and this island. Birch smoke salt. So birch smoking is a really ancient tradition here in Iceland that's used to preserve food and has been for hundreds of years since the Vikings. It's a different style of smoke. It's really rich, really round, makes the best guacamole you've ever had in your whole life. Arctic thyme is an herb that only grows in Iceland, Greenland, and the Faroe Islands. So we have it abundant out our back door in the summertime, but it's something really rare and unique. A little bit more floral than the time we know. Think lavender notes. Great for marinating, grilling season, all of that. Seaweed salt, 2 types of seaweed that grow here on the shores in Iceland. Those are dried and then mixed in. It's the Sheppy salt, the real umami salt. So It builds tons of body in your cooking. And then last one is our licorice salt. So the Nordics have a deep love of licorice. We had to pay homage to that. And so this is natural licorice root, though, so very different than the licorice that we know and either love or hate in the States.
Yeah.
More toasty and nutty notes.
Well, I can't wait to try all of them. We will have the link to where you can find Saltverk online. Thank you so much for being here. Happy Earth Day. I can't wait to try them all.
Happy Earth Day.
Stay with us. We have more when we come back.